I recreated the whole history of World War II in the form of Lego builds. This is part 2 of World War II in a Lego nutshell. If you haven't checked part 1, feel free to pause the video right now and click the link which you can find at the top right corner of the screen right now. We will take a look at the German advance at the Eastern Front, and I've even made a mock which includes 3 scenes in one. After the Battle of Dunkirk, Churchill decided to not accept Hitler's suggestion of dividing Europe into 2 parts where Hitler can control the mainland and Great Britain can control the Atlantic Ocean. Because of Churchill's resistance, the Battle of England started. The Germans used heavy bombers like the Heinkel HE-111 to bomb out London, which is the capital city of England. To include such a scene in my video, I've decided to build it in micro scale. Because of German bombs, a lot of the buildings are already destroyed or burning. To make the bombers look like they are flying above the city, I've used these transparent pieces and stick them into the build. The second build also depicts the Battle of England. I've built a heavy 3.7-inch anti-aircraft gun used by the British Army until the end of the war. You can definitely compare this one to the famous Flak 88 used by the Germans. In combination with the Royal Air Force, the British were able to protect their land by the German Luftwaffe. In the beginning of the battle, the Germans decided to attack mainly airfields of the British Army. This strategy was smart and effective, but somehow they've decided to change it. Instead of attacking military positions, they've decided to attack civilian cities like London. That was the turning point of the Battle of England. The 3.7 AA gun had a crew of 7 soldiers. After deploying the gun, I've realized that I had to add a seat. I've then added the actual gun and the tires which were used for transporting this weapon. As you can see in the picture, they usually place the tires at the front of the gun. I've placed all the minifigures and added this anti-aircraft Lewis gun which the soldier placed on top of a tree stamp. In October 1940, the Battle of Britain ended and the British were able to defend their country. In September 1940, Japan, Germany and Italy founded the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis. This made all 3 of the nation confederates. Right after this pact, Italy attacked the Somaliland as well as Egypt and Greece. But due to British resistance, both the attack on Egypt and Greece failed. Germany then decided to support Italy and founded the Afrika Corps. They entered the battle in northern Africa. My build is supposed to be a small display stand for only one minifigure. It depicts the Battle of Egypt. I've built a road by using small corner tiles as well as 1x1 studs. I've then added landscape details in form of plates and slopes. You can see an Italian soldier running away from a British tank. After the founding of the Rome-Berlin-Tokyo axis, Hungary became a part of this one in 1940 as well. In 1940, the USA weren't included in World War II, but they've sent supply ships to England. These supply ships were hunted by German U-boats at the Atlantic Ocean. But after cracking the encrypted Enigma code, which was used for communication between the U-boats, the British and US were able to locate the German U-boats and destroy a lot of them. My next build depicts 3 scenes in one. At first, I've added a dark tan surface at the base plates as well as a black border. The first scene depicts British forces in Egypt. Therefore, I've added a small road which I've made in dark tan to separate it from the rest of the landscape which is in tan. The wedge plates allowed me to create smooth transitions between both colors. I've then added the rest of the landscape at the left and right in form of tan bricks, for which I've used tiles, plates and even tiles with studs. Now I can add both British minifigures in their desert uniform and add some smaller details like these cutted plates. The second scene is the main part of this build. It is supposed to be the Comando Supremo, which is located in the harbour city of Tobruk. Tobruk was defended by soldiers mainly from New Zealand. I've implemented dark tan into the white walls to give them a damaged look. I've then added a black gate as the entrance. Therefore I've used these black bar pieces with a stud on the bottom. But after adding this one, only the half of the gate was done. I had to develop a unique technique to finish it. I've grabbed a bunch of headlight bricks and connected them. As you can see, this plate perfectly end up with the headlight brick at the right. I've then repeated this step and added a 1x2 jumper plate at the top. The final design element was a pillar which I made out of a 1x1 plate and a tile. Now it's time to present you the reason for all of this. The 3 studs at the bottom allowed me to connect this 1x6 plate with again the black bars at the side and connect them with the rest of the build. As you can see, this perfectly ends up and creates a nice looking gate. Next, I've continued the dark tan road next to the building. The dark tan road at the left helped to create a smooth transition between the scene at the left and the one in the middle. As I just mentioned, these two British are supposed to be in Egypt, but to defend Greece against Italian forces, they had to move to Greece. This gave Italian and German forces the possibility to attack Egypt again and take it from the British. Now it's time to build an interior for the fortress. Therefore I've added the dark tan floor as well as brown barrels, because these are typical for harbor cities. Because the soldiers also need some cover, I've decided to add sandbags by using dark tan pieces again. These also work great as protection for the Bren gun position. I've used the same minifigures as before, as the uniforms of the New Zealand troops were the same as the British were. The final build of this scene depicts the Battle of Greece, or more detailed, the Battle of Crete. German Fallschirmjägers, also known as Green Devils, landed there. Even though the British sent more forces to Greece, they weren't able to defend them against the Fallschirmjägers, as they was the superior unit of the German Wehrmacht at the time. To recreate the rocky landscape of Greece, I've decided to implement a lot of light bluish grey slopes and tiles. The base of the ground color again is dark tan, for which I've used tiles and plates. Because of their green uniforms, the Fallschirmjägers were called Green Devils by the Allied forces. After adding some final greebling, the whole MOC is done. In parallel to the invasion of Greece, the Germans also attacked Yugoslavia, which is also known as the Balkan Feldzug. From there on, the horrible deportation of Jewish people continued. The next scene depicts the starting point of Operation Barbarossa. More than 3 million German soldiers started the invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941. They captured 250,000 Soviet soldiers in Minsk, 300,000 more in Smolensk and 660,000 in Kiev and Bryansk. That's a total of 1.2 million prisoners of war. The official reason for the attack was to fight against the communism and to create more homeland for German people. My build depicts two typical tanks which were used during the invasion, the Panzer III as well as the Panzer II, but they were actually inferior against the Soviet T-34. But due to the Blitzkrieg tactic, the German army again was pretty successful in the early stages of this operation. For the final details of this build, I've added some grass pieces. In the Soviet Union, the deportation of Jewish people again continued. This was mainly executed by members of the SS. Right after Operation Barbarossa, the continuation war also started. This war was the continuation of the Soviet-Finnish Winter War in 1940. I've decided to recycle the build from the scene before, but this time I've added a dark tan road where a T-34 will drive on. After filling all the gaps, it was time to add some final details like trees. Since Finland is full of pine trees, I've decided to add some in form of Lego. I've made these by sticking a lot of grass pieces into modified 1x1 bricks with 4 studs on 4 sides. I've also added some tree stems which are stacked. Now I added the T-34 and some infantry behind him. 2 Finnish soldiers are ready to attack the infantry and the tank by using a tank grenade. The next build depicts a German Stuck which is stuck in the snow right before Moscow. The German advance through the Soviet Union was pretty successful until the winter came. Vehicles and soldiers weren't equipped to fight in the winter. Between October 1941 and January 1942, the Soviet defense effort frustrated Hitler's attack on Moscow. Since Moscow is the capital and largest city of the Soviet Union, this city was the main target of Operation Barbarossa. But the German 3rd and 4th Army weren't able to take Moscow, which was the first fail during Operation Barbarossa. Since the Stuck version you can see right now wasn't developed in 1941, I've had to change the barrel. Now it has the right barrel von Stuck 3 Ausführung B, which was used during the Battle of Moscow. I've then added 3 German soldiers wearing winter coats, gloves, as well as a balaclava hat and scarves. They also camouflaged their helmets in the same colors as the landscape was. The soldiers are frustrated because of the freezing cold and the bad supply to the front. Their enemy is well better prepared and already familiar with the bad weather conditions, but they do their best and follow the orders to take Moscow. In the meantime, Japan wants to expand their territory into the south, but this was controlled by the USA, so the Japanese had to attack their fleet. The Japanese sent 6 aircraft carriers and much more to Pearl Harbor, which was the base of the US Navy during that time period. They were able to sink 5 battleships and destroy nearly 200 planes. Beside that, more than 2,400 US soldiers died at this day. In comparison, only 65 Japanese soldiers died and 29 planes got destroyed. My build depicts one of the 5 battleships which got sunk at this day, but luckily none of the US aircraft carriers were stationed at Pearl Harbor, which means that their fleet is still powerful and they are ready to attack Japan. This day, which was the 7th of December, was the day where the USA declared war on Japan, right after Germany declared war to the USA, which wasn't necessary.